My name is Maya, and this happened during my final year of university in Vancouver. I was house sitting for my aunt in a wealthy, quiet neighborhood. It was one of those old, three-story Victorian houses, beautiful, but full of dark corners and heavy doors. My aunt told me the house was smart, equipped with cameras and a top-tier security system. I felt like I was in a fortress. I was wrong. About 3 nights in, the security app on my phone started sending me notifications at 2 a.m. Motion detected in the basement. I checked the feed, but all I saw was a dark, empty laundry room. I figured it was just a spider or the old heating pipes. But the next morning, I noticed something small. A window in the basement, the one right behind the furnace, was unlocked. I locked it. Thinking my aunt had just been forgetful, that night I stayed awake. I sat in the dark living room with the app open. At 2:45 a.m., the notification popped up again. I didn't look at the phone. I looked at the floorboards. Creak, creak. Someone was walking directly beneath me. I grabbed my phone and accessed the archived footage from the previous nights. I scrolled back to the hour before I arrived at the house. My heart stopped. The footage showed a man, thin, wearing a dirty yellow raincoat, sliding out from a hidden storage crawl space. He wasn't breaking in. He was already there when I moved in. He had been living in the walls for weeks. I saw him on the live feed, standing at the bottom of the stairs. He was holding a kitchen knife he'd taken from the upstairs drawer. I didn't scream. I quietly slipped out the front door and sprinted to my car. I drove to the end of the block and called the Vancouver police. I watched from my car as 4 cruisers surrounded the house. They went in with K9 units. 10 minutes later, they dragged him out. He wasn't fighting, he was laughing. The lead officer walked over to my car, his face pale. He told me they found a nest in the crawl space. The man had a sleeping bag, my aunt's missing jewelry, and a small notebook. The officer handed me the notebook. On the last page, dated that night, it said, "She noticed the window. Time to finish the game." I didn't stay to finish my house sitting. I moved back into my tiny, crowded dorm room the next day. I realized that a smart house is only as safe as the people already inside it. Now, whenever I enter a room, I don't look at the furniture. I look at the walls. Because you never truly know. Who is sharing the silence with you? Last year, my wife, Elena, and I finally closed on a small ranch-style house outside of Phoenix, Arizona. We're a young couple, and we put every cent of our savings into this place. We thought we were buying a piece of the American dream, a yard for a future dog, and a fresh start. But that pride was literally burned out of us by the man living at house 402. Our neighbor was a man in his 60s named Mr. Vance. On the day we moved in, he didn't bring a cake or a wave. He stood on his porch with his arms crossed, watching us unload the U-Haul. I walked over to say hi, but he just turned around and went inside, slamming his door so hard my windows rattled. The first week, it was small things. I'd wake up and find my trash cans tipped over in the middle of the street. Then, Elena noticed him standing by the shared fence at 2 a.m., just staring at our bedroom window with a flashlight. Every time we looked at him, he'd vanish. It felt like we were being hunted in our own home. Things turned dark about a month in. We came home from dinner to find a heap of dead, rotting grass piled on our front porch. Then, the noise started. Every time we had friends over, Vance would blast an industrial siren from his garage. It was ear-splitting. I finally went to his door to confront him. He opened it just a crack, and the smell of old tobacco and hate hit me like a wall. He didn't yell. He just whispered, "You don't fit the landscape, kid. You'll be gone by Christmas. I'll make sure of it." This wasn't just a grumpy neighbor. This was a man on a mission. The breaking point was a Tuesday night. We were woken up by the sound of something splashing against our siding. I ran to the window and saw Vance with a gas can. He was pouring gasoline in a circle around our cars. I yelled that I was calling the cops, and he just looked up at me and smiled, a slow, jagged grin. The police came, but because he hadn't actually lit the match, they just gave him a warning. We felt completely unprotected. The next night, a brick came through the nursery window. The message was clear. We didn't wait for Christmas. We put the house back on the market 3 months after moving in. We lost money, and we lost our confidence, but we saved our lives. We moved into a gated community where the neighbors actually talk to each other. A house is just wood and nails, but a neighborhood is made of people. You can't put a price on peace of mind. If you feel like you're being targeted, don't stay to prove a point. Your life is worth more than a mortgage. We moved on and we moved up, but I still check the perimeter of my yard every single night. My name is Sarah. In 2022, I moved into a townhome in the foothills of Denver, Colorado. Being a night shift nurse, I lived for the quiet. My neighbor, Mr. Henderson, was a retired carpenter who seemed perfect, polite, distant, and always busy in his garage. But in the mountains, the silence can hide a lot of things. About a month in, I noticed a small piece of black electrical tape on the shared wall of our balconies. It felt out of place. I peeled it back, and my heart stopped. It was a hole, drilled perfectly through the wood, angled directly at my living room sofa. I didn't scream. I didn't knock on his door. I needed to know what was on the other side. The next morning, I waited until I saw his truck pull out of the driveway. I took a small medical camera and fed the wire through the hole. The image on my phone screen blurred, then snapped into focus. I wasn't looking at a workshop. It was a tiny dark room with a single chair facing the wall. But it was the walls that made me sick. They were covered in hundreds of photos of me sleeping, eating, even stepping out of the shower. He hadn't just been watching. He had been documenting my life, like a specimen. I backed away, shaking, and called the Denver police immediately. I met them at the curb and showed them the live feed on my phone. They didn't hesitate. They breached his front door within minutes. I stood in the cold mountain air and watched as they led Mr. Henderson out in zip ties. He didn't look like a monster. He looked like a normal old man. But as he passed me, he leaned in and whispered, "I liked the blue dress better, Sarah." I left that house that same afternoon and never went back. I moved to a busy apartment complex in the city where there are no shared walls. The lesson cost me my dream home, but it taught me something valuable. Never mistake a neighbor's silence for privacy. Sometimes they aren't just living next to you, they're watching the show.